Story 1. Taiwan is a small island with limited natural resources. It produces 75% of the world's advanced microprocessors. Story 2. Just want to at least mention Botswana. It was the poorest country in the world at independence. It had no roads, no infrastructure of any kind, no industries to speak of. Even its capital city was in another country. It had many disadvantages. It is landlocked, it was surrounded on three sides by racist apartheid states, and it was hit very hard by the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome crisis before anybody could have known how to limit it. It had only 3 areas of any economic potential. Diamonds had just been discovered but were not being mined at scale yet. The local people raised cattle, and the region is very beautiful and can be valuable for tourism. Many African countries had far greater potential at their independence and failed to reach it for a whole bunch of reasons. But Botswana today is one of the most stable and prosperous countries in Africa, starting from the very back of the pack. It's amazing, actually. No country in Africa has done so much with so little. Story 3, of course, Singapore. The fact that it transformed from a poor fishing village in the 1950s to a wealthy, Western-like city-state is truly impressive. Story 4. It has to be the Asian tigers, specifically Singapore and Taiwan. They went from dirt-poor third-world backwaters to first-class city-states within a single generation. The most incredible aspect of their transformation is that, unlike the oil-rich Arab countries, they achieved this with hardly any natural resources. Their success came from strong, forward-thinking leadership, maximizing their location for geopolitical advantages, and an unrelenting investment in developing an educated and talented workforce. In Taiwan's case, they also used diplomatic leverage to keep an aggressive, infinitely more powerful rival, the People's Republic of China, at bay. Story 5. Slovenia, among all the countries in the Balkans, went from being a forgotten middle child in Yugoslavia to a country that rivals Scandinavian nations in terms of quality of life. It has very beautiful mountains, hiking paths that are well maintained, and it is clear that they take great pride in their alpine tourism. Prices are comparable to Croatia, but incomes are noticeably higher, so there are few complaints. Story 6. The Netherlands has very good infrastructure and world-leading companies like ASML and Philips, all while being at constant risk of flooding and having few natural resources. Story 7. I think Denmark has done extremely well for a country with only 6 million people. Lego, Novo Nordisk, Bang & Olufsen dairy and meat products. Denmark is also among the happiest countries globally. Story 8. Not Canada. We are refusing to use our potential. We have enough natural resources to feed China, the United States, and all of the European Union, but no desire to profit from it. Story 9. South Korea transformed from war-torn poverty in the 1950s to a technology and cultural powerhouse in just a few decades. Story 10. The Netherlands added large amounts of usable land to their country by reclaiming land from the sea, so they get the win in my book. Story 11. Despite the complicated history before 1950, I feel that Japan is among the best. They have a unique dedication to perfection across arts and disciplines that is unparalleled elsewhere. Anime, appliances, automobiles, cherry blossoms, gardens, seafood, other food, train travel, painting, pottery. Anything they engage in, they pursue full perfection in form and function in a way no other culture matches. The runner-up, in my opinion, is Finland. Story 12. Ireland has no natural resources and is located on the periphery of Europe. It has no significant domestic population or economy and has been independent for only 100 years. Despite these challenges, Ireland has done quite well with the circumstances it has been given. Story 13. What about England? A small island with terrible weather becoming the largest and most powerful empire in history. They are at a low point right now, but around 1900, they had no rival in history up to that time. Story 14. Mauritius has performed very well, ranking as the #1 economy in Africa despite being a small island with no natural resources. Story 15. Japan. No other country has excelled in technology, fashion, and industry like Japan. I cannot include the military because the United States has to defend them if they go to war. Most think it is because we bombed them. That is not true. They had already lost the war. The United States bombed them to show Russia our power. Story 16. Nordic countries, Switzerland, Monaco, South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Benelux, the new tiger economies. Roughly in that order. Honorable mentions, but not quite there. Ireland, Uruguay, Canada. Story 17. My father worked in Singapore for 5 years. I have been there a couple of times. There is virtually no crime, it is totally safe for women, there are strong labor laws, and an excellent public transport system. The ruler of Singapore is the son of Singapore's founder, Lee Kuan Yew. He has done an excellent job, and hence you do not see people uprising against him. Their motto is simple: do honest work and reap the benefits. I was studying in San Jose, United States, and my dad visited me from Singapore. He said that Singapore is much better than the United States. That itself shows how good Singapore is. But honestly, I love it here in the United States. Story 18. France is full of French people, and it is the most visited country in the world. I believe its potential was maximized to achieve this. Story 19. To be honest, and not even political, both Taiwan and Singapore should not really count in this discussion since they are too small. In comparison, just look at Japan. A resource-poor island nation that was attacked twice with nuclear bombs and firebombed extensively after sending 1 million of their able-bodied men to die for their idealistic and zealous leaders' war of aggression. Afterwards, it made a complete turnaround and built the world's second-largest economy during the Cold War in less than 20 years. If that is not maximizing its potential, then I do not know what is. Story 20. Like them or loathe them, but Israel. Just have a look at the Six-Day War and the population imbalances. Story 21. I haven't seen anyone here make an argument for Qatar yet, so allow me. I think Qatar is the smallest country in the world that has managed to become a regional power. Only 3 million people live in Qatar, only 10% of whom are citizens, and it is about the size of Massachusetts. Luckily, Qatar exists right next to the largest natural gas field ever discovered, which is the foundation of their immense wealth. Qatar also pioneered the liquefied natural gas business, enabling them to export their gas globally and become a major energy power. Qatar is one of the top 3 gas exporters in the world, alongside Russia and the United States. They have used their enormous gas wealth to gain significant influence despite their small size. Al Jazeera is one of the largest journalism conglomerates in the world. Qatar Airways is one of the most valuable airlines globally, and they host the largest United States military base in the Middle East at Al Udeid, making them an indispensable ally. They can also afford to influence powerful organizations and people, as seen with the FIFA World Cup they hosted in 2022 and the recent Boeing 747 they gifted to Donald Trump. We can disagree with Qatar's ethics all day, but they have certainly played their hand well and transformed a small, overlooked peninsula into a formidable power today. Story 22. Monaco is not even sure how it managed to stay a separate country for all those centuries. Now, it is a playground for the extremely wealthy and has some of the most expensive real estate in the world, yet it is only a couple of square miles in size. Story 23. Finland has hardly any natural resources but has managed to have the happiest people in the world and the best education system. Maybe the two are related? Story 24. Germany constantly amazes me. It lost 2 world wars and is now the 3rd biggest economy. It offers free education for everyone, including international people, free healthcare, and the Autobahn. Its medical and pharmaceutical industries, tourism, and current reliable leadership of the Western world are impressive. The fact that it was once split and then unified, helping to keep the European Union together, is truly magnificent. Story 25. Unpopular opinion here. It looks like China and India have done a good job of recovering from the difficulties they faced during and before World War II. The existence and prosperity of both nations have been important for global stability. However, of the two, India has been an underperformer, and its recent turn towards fascism is very concerning. Both China and India have been influenced by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. China has clearly understood communist ideology better than the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, while India has moved away from it in a different direction. Story 26. United Kingdom. Invaded or fought 171 of 193 countries. Owned a quarter of the globe. A different country celebrates its independence from the United Kingdom roughly every 5 days. Launched the Industrial Revolution. Invented the steam engine, television, radio, computer, World Wide Web, jet engine, baseball, and more. Story 27. Hands down, Israel. From arid desert to a high-tech nation, with the best water-saving and desalination technologies in the world, a myriad of inventions and startups, high quality of life and great food, all achieved through continuous efforts to ensure its survival. Story 28. I am excited for the opposite of this question and proud of my beloved country, the Philippines. Story 29. I think it is the United States, a colony to the world's superpower and biggest economy in under 300 years, surviving all the internal and external challenges, highs and lows, and still remains. I understand, the former president is flawed and will be a strange footnote in history. We will continue to move forward and thrive. Story 30. Some people may not like this answer, but Israel transformed a desert land by eradicating malaria and developed it into a thriving country, including the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, all while being surrounded by terrorists and enemies. Story 31. Germany after World War II. From a destroyed country with nearly no resources to one of the world-leading countries. Story 32. Israel. A third of Jews were annihilated 5 to 10 years before the country's foundation. On the day of their independence, they were attacked by countless Arab neighbors and survived through a number of well-documented factors. The country started with very little. They experienced war every decade or two, including in 1948, the Six-Day War, the 1973 War, the 1980 Lebanon War, and 2006. It is located in the middle of the desert without any natural resources. The country is smaller than the state of Massachusetts. Its gross domestic product is among the top 30 in the world despite its proximity to hostile neighbors. It is globally recognized as a technology powerhouse and has one of the strongest militaries in the world. Israel has the highest number of startups per capita in the world. Story 33. United States of America is dominant and unmatched. From a new world backwater to the leading power on the planet. 27% of the world's gross domestic product with 4% of the population. Story 34. Singapore is a great example of transforming from a small, resource-poor country into a global economic and technology leader in just decades. Story 35. Singapore has a maximum tax rate of 20%, no corporation tax, and low taxes for new businesses. Housing is guaranteed to citizens. Foreigners cannot use public education or health services. The wonderful Lee Kuan Yew. Story 36. Singapore is built and planned efficiently down to every inch. You cannot get more efficient than Singapore, as it takes full advantage of its geographical location, if we exclude microstates. The next example is the Netherlands. How can a small country be the third largest agricultural exporter in the world? Story 37. England, or Great Britain, at the peak of the British Empire around 1919. Territories spanned across the globe and a world war was under our belt. No country with such a small landmass has any right to be that powerful. Story 38. Israel is the objectively correct answer here. It is a small land with no natural resources. Much of it was malaria-ridden until the swamps were drained to eliminate mosquitoes. 5 Arab nations declared war on Israel the day it declared independence. It is surrounded by enemy states that have declared war on it multiple times. Israel has been forced to spend almost 40% of its budget on defense to face extermination. Now, it has a GDP per capita higher than most Western European nations, equal rights for all citizens, and is the only democracy in the region. Story 39. Croatia most likely will reach the FIFA World Cup final in the biggest sport in the world, football, twice with only 3.8 million people. Story 40. Probably Singapore, small in size but massive in impact. Smart planning, strong economy, and very clean streets. They really made the most of what they had. Story 41. El Salvador has made significant progress in controlling gangs. While opinions on the heavy-handed tactics used by the current president vary, These methods have produced results. Already known as a world-class surfing destination, if the security situation continues to improve, the number of sun-worshipping, bargain-hunting tourists will increase. Story 42. Belgium is a mix of vastly different people. Despite a very incompetent government and being overrun throughout history, it is not yet part of Germany, France, or the Netherlands. Story 43. Singapore hands down. As someone who lived there for 3 years, it is mind-blowing how they transformed from a tiny fishing village to a global financial powerhouse in just 1 generation. My grandmother visited me there and could not believe that a country with zero natural resources could build such an efficient society. Story 44. Switzerland is known for maximizing its potential through education, innovation, and political stability, becoming a global leader in finance and quality of life. Story 45. Russia. President Vladimir Putin has played a weak hand brilliantly. We will have to wait to see how the situation in Ukraine plays out. Story 46. Norway has a $1 trillion trust fund from its North Sea oil and gas wealth that benefits all citizens, unlike British North Sea oil and Alberta's oil, which only benefited large oil companies. Story 47. I would say Singapore because it is a small country that has focused on education, good governance, and infrastructure. Now it is one of the most developed countries. Story 48. I want to say Iceland. Any native people here can correct me as I am American, but in prior decades it was a pretty isolated, economically depressed country. However, it is one of the most naturally beautiful and geographically interesting places in the world. I think they have done a fantastic job promoting tourism and giving visitors a wonderful and unique experience like no other. English is a widespread second language there. I did not meet a single person who did not speak English, from teens working in an ice cream shop to the 70-something bartender at one of the restaurants I visited. I think their infrastructure, such as the number of hotel rooms and public transport options, has some catching up to do given their success in promoting tourism, but they are master marketers in my opinion, and I say this as a career marketer. I visited several months ago and cannot wait to return. Story 49. South Korea. From war to Korean pop music, global technology powerhouse, and skincare. Not bad for a country that was dirt poor in the 1950s. Story 50. People talk about Singapore being built out of nothing and not having natural resources or even farmland. Perhaps having limited potential is a blessing in disguise. Having potential and being rich in resources made Vietnam a battleground for power both domestically and from colonial powers. Many aspects of South Vietnam's capital, Saigon, were similar to Singapore at the time. Just replace the British with the French. It was international with major ports and trading hubs, and by the 1960s had the highest English proficiency in Asia due to the American presence. Other than the American occupation post-World War II, Japan was not colonized. Attempts were made, if you can even say that, but the island nation was left alone and had the space to modernize its army before attempting to colonize other Asian countries. Vietnam never had this opportunity during that era. Japan is similarly sized and shaped to Vietnam, even population-wise. Most of Japan's land is mountainous, not as natural resource-rich, and nowhere near as fertile as South Vietnam's Mekong Delta. From a Western colonizer's perspective, if they were to attempt to colonize one country, it would be a better return on investment to pick Vietnam over Japan. It's easier for a small country such as Singapore to have alignment and consensus. This becomes nearly impossible for countries with large populations spanning great geographical distances. People focus on the 2 major armies in Vietnam, but there were dozens of ideological factions with standing militias, including religious cults with millions of members and organized crime groups. The geographical distance meant that people could develop divergent ideologies over extended periods of time. The sharing of space and proximity in city-states forces people to get along and cooperate with their neighbors. With all this said, Lee Kuan Yew is a genius and once-in-many-centuries leader. However, I wonder if he would have had the top spot had he been in China or another large country. Large populations are prone to populism and electing the least qualified politicians who are mostly only good at lying to the masses. Now, Vietnamese people go to Singapore to be migrant workers and maids. The rich ones go to Singapore for its medical services. Story 51. Poland might not have maximized its potential yet, but we are closer. When communism fell, there was a lot of unemployment and poverty. Yet, less than 30 years later, we are attracting many foreign investors and companies and becoming successful. Story 52. I want to vouch for my home country, but I can't. Lithuania, considering it has been independent for only 35 years, was used by the Soviet Union as a large factory and drained of resources. It is also a very small country, half the size of New York State with 1/7 of the population. So, I think it is impressive what we have achieved almost everywhere you look. There are 3 players currently in the National Basketball Association with more prospects and more notable names in other sports. 4 restaurants have Michelin stars, with many more holding lesser-known Michelin awards. Ever heard of Vint or NordVPN? These are Lithuanian startups. Lasers are often highlighted when discussing Lithuanian industry. Other high technologies include pharmacy, fertilizer production, and petrochemicals. However, Lithuania has not reached its maximum potential due to poor government management, which is more disappointing than anything else. With proper funding, trust me, the money exists, and the European Union provides substantial help, we could achieve much more. Story 53. Norway has been successful in creating wealth from the extraction of its natural resources without concentrating it at the top. Story 54. Poland disappeared from maps for 123 years, was the battlefield of 2 of the biggest wars the world has ever seen, and suffered millions of citizens slaughtered through decades of communism. In 1 generation, we are on the route to surpass Japan in terms of gross domestic product per capita. Of course, there is much more to be done, and politicians have been mostly ineffective, but we have quickly gone from a poorly developed agricultural nation to a key player on the eastern flank of Europe. Story 55. Norway has vast amounts of oil. It places the revenue in a sovereign wealth fund for its people and remains a democratic country. Story 56. The answer is Bhutan. They have created so much hydroelectric power that they sell their power to neighboring countries, including India. Bhutan is the greenest and happiest country on earth. Story 57. Rwanda. Starting from the baseline of 1994, the country had just experienced a genocide that tore its society apart. It is difficult to conceive of a lower starting point. Since then, Rwanda has become one of the safest and most stable societies on the continent. It has undergone rapid economic development, and its capital has been transformed beyond recognition into one of the cleanest cities on earth. The country has established a highly impactful military and foreign policy, projecting power well beyond its borders over a region much larger than its small size. Story 58. Somalia has a large coastline, and the pirates are masters of their craft. The pirates make significant money, and the civil war does not really matter. Story 59. I am surprised the United States of America is not mentioned here. It went from colonies overthrowing their rulers to expanding across the entire continent. Now it is the most influential country on the globe. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.